What is the most powerful trait we have? You need power, speed. Let your imagination do the rest.
Undisputed, the Mexican Monster Pack out now.
Boxing King Media. We're out here in the UK, not in the US, with Pauli the Magic Man Malignaggi, looking slim and trim. From the last time I seen you, that's obviously complimentary. Don't take any offense from that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we actually announced my BKB fight today. Well, we had actually announced it in the last few days, but we announced the opponent today. So I've been training, and I think people have been following my page and seeing the news that obviously I'm fighting again, and so that's why I'm looking trim and slim because I've actually been training.
But I've seen you putting some pictures up, man. You got six pack out and everything. Not bad for somebody in their 40s.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I got a six pack now. Let's see. Do I still got the six pack? It's so. I don't know. It's depends on how fresh my workout just was. That I'm freshly sweating and freshly pumped. But yeah, I do feel good, man. I've lost some weight, and I've got some rhythm back, and it's been good. It just, I hadn't gotten this kind of motivation and shape, obviously, because the only thing that, as a fighter, and fighters know, fighters will understand what I'm saying, the only thing that really gets you motivated to get on that tunnel vision grind like this is a fight. If you don't get a fight, you can try to stay in shape, and I've always tried to do that in between since my retirement, like at least, try to do some road work and try to, maintain some kind of appearances, but the only thing that really gets you to that point where you're super focused, hyper focused, is a fight.
Well, the obvious question is going to be, like, your fans who have followed your career are going to be asking, why on earth have you decided to come back?
Well, I think there's going to be a lot of questions. I think there's going to be a lot of assumptions as well. And I've seen a lot of assumptions. There's the assumption that, fighters sometimes can't let it go. That is one. There's another assumption to say, fighters, they need money. That's two. And then there's, random run-of-the-mill assumptions that, have been mixed in as well. I've seen all of them, and I've heard all of them. And I think, the funny thing about it is it's probably a little bit of everything, but not like you assume it, So yeah, if one of it is can't let it go, right? I mean, you want to hear the roar one last time. You want to, walk to the ring one last time. You want to, or at least for one last run. I can't say one last time, one last run of it, And you realize if I don't do this right now, I'm the age I am, if I don't do this right now, if I let any more time pass by right now, I'll never feel that again, ever. Can I live with myself if I say I let that pass and I never let it happen again? Can I live with myself in a few years when then I can't do it? Then the option is gone completely. And I just didn't want to live with myself like that. I didn't want to have to ask myself that question. So yeah, one of them is you want to, go back to the nostalgic feeling. You want to feel that. Two, people sometimes say, he's broke, he needs money. I wouldn't say I'm broke, because my version of broke and your version of broke is probably two different versions of broke, right? So I do have a goal to, want to move back to Southern Italy, and kind of live out my life in a more relaxed fashion in Southern Italy. Not to say that leaving the United States is because the United States is bad. It's just I'm tired of the hecticness. I'm tired of the rush and everything else. Yeah, exactly. And I can't just pick up and leave because I own too many things there. So that's why I tell you my poverty and your poverty is two different poverties. Because my needing money and your needing money is two different needing money. Because I have a lot of money in my assets, and some of them have become liabilities. So what I have to do is pay down some stuff. And I'm basically giving people my personal info here to a degree, but I'm just trying to explain that everybody's right to a degree. Everybody who's making the assumptions, I'd say you're all a little bit right. It's just not in the way you think you're all a little bit right. Like I'm giving you the context for being a little bit right. So in that way, if I can pay down some things I own, because I made good money in my career, but I didn't make Mayweather money. I didn't make Pacquiao money, but I made good money. So I was able to, acquire several nice things, and some of them, can become passive incomes in a good way if I pay them down, and then I could just kind of, retire to Southern Italy the way I want to, and maybe even, who knows, pick up a little commentating gig in England if I'm living in Sicily, a flight from Sicily to England is basically New York to Florida, New York to Vegas, which I was doing in my American life anyway, right? So that's one of the reasons. That's another reason, and I'd say the last reason is more for a BKB, because they were a company that believed in me when I I got pushed away at Showtime, and I kind of got my legs cut out from under me, and nobody was picking me up. And BKB was one of the channels. BKB and ProBox TV was one of the people, two of the companies that grasped onto me and gave me the chance to sort of keep working and continue my journey as a commentator, and not cut me out completely. And BKB was in its very, very early stages. At the time, BKB and BYB were not together. They've since merged, and BYB has acquired BKB and kept the BKB name. So it was actually BYB. BKB was separate at that time. But BYB was in its early stages with Dada 5000, Mike Vasquez, and Greg Bloom. And, they hired me very early on, and we've grown a lot since. As a matter of fact, we've grown so much that they've since bought BKB and then kept the BKB name because BKB was the older company. As a matter of fact, BKB is even older than BKFC. It is the original Bareknuckle company in the UK before Bareknuckle was even legalized in the US. So in getting with BKB, I realized what fighting for BKFC years ago did for BKFC. It catapulted them to another level, another stratosphere. My fight, the promotion behind it, and all that other stuff in 2019 with Lobov. And I said, if I'm going to come back and fight, first and foremost, 10 rounds and 12 rounds doesn't really suit an older fighter. It's like I can get sharp. I can train right now. I feel really sharp, but I know that in a long haul, past 8, 9, 10 rounds, your older legs start to feel it more than when you're younger. So I said, okay, maybe Bareknuckle is better because for 5 rounds, I can still fight very well, especially if my hands stay healthy, which obviously is always an if. But I said, if I do 5-round fights, I can be sharp, I can get well, and I can, fight the way I know how to fight. It's got to be with BKB. This company has done a lot for me. It's almost like, they help preserve my name. So it's like I almost want to help them as well get to another level. And if I help them get to another level, all the fighters on the roster also get there, And obviously fighting Tyler Goodjohn, that's the opponent we announced today. Tyler Goodjohn was a worthy name that I think was respectable in the bare-knuckle world, has been a pioneer of bare-knuckle fighting, and also is a marketable sell as an opponent, and is a worthy adversary, honestly, because I didn't want to just use my name and jump right into a title fight the way that punk-ass McGregor keeps teasing. You notice punk-ass McGregor, by the way, I decided that I'm going to fight. All of a sudden, he's teasing that he's going to fight. You notice, right? Everybody, all his fans, all his punk-ass fans make like, I can't get him out of my head. This guy follows everything I do. If you watch what he's doing, he's posting pictures on the beach boxing now that he makes like he's going to fight, makes like he's going to fight bare-knuckle. He's obsessed with me, dude. That ass whooping he caught is like another level. And it still bothers him, no matter how much his clown groupies keep thinking it's the other way around. But yeah, so he's teasing that he's going to jump into a title fight, for example, at his company at BKFC. I don't want to do that. I think the sport is bigger than all of us. I think nobody should do that. So I said, who would be a respectable name that if I can get a win over them, it would be both a marketable fight as well as a worthy victory that would then make it not look like I'm skipping the line to a title fight. And you know what, Tyler Goodjohn, ticks all the boxes. He's marketable. He's got a great name in the sport. He's been a pioneer of bare-knuckle fighting itself. He's been a former world champion at BKB, and also he's got a big resume. So that's why we went that route. So I again to sort of overview everything I just answered, because I know I've been talking for a few minutes. Everybody was a little bit right. It's just I'm giving you the context for what the being right is, and at the same time I want to clear it up for everybody else as well.
Well, that's quite a good explanation. I think you fully kind of explained it. But the only thing I've got to ask you is, obviously, you was known in the boxing world for bad hands. One of the reasons why you boxed the way you boxed, you used your jab a lot. Any worries or concerns about busting your hands? Even when I look at your hands and I could still see the scars and damages that you've had. Concerns about that?
Yeah. I think that the concerns are always there with that. Sure, I always had bad hands. But also, one thing I learned in the Lobov fight was that, maybe you can't turn your punches the same way as you do in a boxing match because your hands will break, right? I mean, you got to kind of throw your punches in a snappy way, but maybe not turn your hips too much into them. I think I learned that in the Lobov fight. Just by the time I figured that out, I already broke my hand, and I was only fighting with one hand. So I was doing that with my lead hand. And I ended up having to fight on the back foot in boxing. And I think that was a bit too high of an IQ for the judges in Florida to understand. And also, unfortunately, for MMA fans to understand. I think to this day, they still don't understand that fighting on the back foot, there's a science and an art to it. But I think that ultimately, with two hands, I think people haven't gotten to see the best of Pauli Malignaggi in bare hands with two hands yet. Because I don't think, you just sit back and box in bare knuckle with two hands. I'll tell you, I'll put it like that. You know, I'm not going to tell you what you're going to see. But I think if you watch the early part of the Lawwell fight, you kind of see like there's aggression there. And that's a southpaw. So I was still trying to figure out the distance. Every southpaw is a little bit different. So you got to kind of figure out the distance. You know, Good John is a right-hander. You get in there and you start fighting, you know. And Good John is a good fighter. He's actually a better fighter than Lawwell at this. So I expect a good fight, a tough fight. But I also know that with me with two hands, it's a very different proposition. Even with bare hands, like I don't come just from boxing. I'm not Frankie Gavin who just went in there and fell on his face. You know, I've been in a lot of street fights in my life, but even before I started boxing, I don't come from a nice place in my life. You know, so this goes back to that. But I know how to throw my hands.
Well, we wish you all the best on that. It's September. Is it September
September the 6th in Bristol, England, yeah. And it'll be on TalkSport here in the UK. They have the contract with BKB. And in the US, Vice TV is getting the contract. So Vice TV, I think a lot of Americans are familiar with Vice TV. And also, BKB is also doing a contract in the US with the Latino channel, Telemundo. And Telemundo is going to be on their fast channel, not on the regular channel. It'll be also on their fast channel. So by the time September 6th comes around, I think we'll have some good TV perspectives for this fight. And like I said, I think between me and Good John's marketability and promotability, and then the fight itself being a solid matchup, I think this will raise a lot of curiosity, and it will raise the profile of BKB. And in that regard, it helps all the fighters in the stable as well to be with a bigger brand.
Fascinating. I watched a bare knuckle fight for the first time the other day. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know what to expect, but I did enjoy it. It was a gruesome but entertaining, edge of your seat stuff, because when you see knuckle to bone, it's good to watch. So yeah, all the best on that, Pauli. And then before I let you go, I've got to ask you about some current trending boxing topics, because people always like your opinion. The thing I want to start off with is just talk to you a little bit about this situation in the heavyweight division with Fury, AJ, Wilder. We saw a comeback the other day. You know, there's, I don't know if you watch Carl Froch's channel, he's been quite adamant on saying, AJ should retire because he's scared to fight a puncher. We saw Wilder come back the other day. He got some criticism. We've seen Tyson saying he's retired, but he's still, floating around saying he's coming back. So do you still want to see these fights? Should these fights still happen?
Personally, I'm not sure 100% how they'll entertain, but I think these guys all have drawing power. I thought Wilder looked pretty pitiful the other night, though. He had a guy in front of him who was basically just there to survive, and he couldn't really find him for most of the fight, And he looked like a shot fighter to me. But, maybe there's enough curiosity, One thing about it is, you'll talk to random boxing fans, and they'll say, I'd still watch, AJ and Fury. I'd still watch AJ and Wilder. Would you? I don't know. I mean, if Fury's training, so far we could see that they're fading, right? We haven't really seen Fury faded yet, because Fury still fought at a high level when he lost to Usyk, and Usyk is the #1 heavyweight in the world. But now, after a layoff, and then you come back again, layoffs hurt you to begin with, but layoffs at this age may hurt you even more. So if Fury comes back, obviously, there's going to be a curiosity about it. But if he looks just as bad as Wilder, now we're going to be sort of having a senior circuit where these guys have a big name, they generate curiosity, but are they really of the level to be worth watching? I guess, it depends. It depends on how much they want to do it, because I am not here to tell another man, oh, don't do that if it generates enough money for you. You know what I mean? If it generates enough money to tickle your fancy, all right. I think if they do it, though, they're not doing it to achieve anything, because I think at this point it's pretty clear they are below the ability to win a heavyweight championship, I think, I mean, we'll see how Fury comes back, because Fury was still competitive with Usyk in his last fight. But I think somebody like Wilder, for example, we just saw, he's below an ability to win a heavyweight championship. So if he's coming back, what's he coming back for? Just to make a few bucks? If you can, okay. If people are still interested, who am I to tell you not to do it? But you're definitely not doing it to achieve. That's why I chose bare knuckle. I chose bare knuckle because I know I can't win a boxing title, but I feel like I can win a title in bare knuckle. It's 5 rounds. I can feel like I can go for that. I can test myself and go for that. I think if you're doing this in boxing, you have to ask yourself, can I win a heavyweight championship? Can I win a championship, or am I doing it just to grab a few bucks? Just to grab a few quid? And we'll see. AJ's hugely marketable. I think he'll always attract. Even if he doesn't fill Wembley, he'll at least fill the O2 for sure. But again, he's got to ask himself, what is the reason I want to fight for again? Do I want to fight to compete for a heavyweight championship? Do I really believe I can win a heavyweight championship? If not, well then, again, it's just about grabbing a few more quid before you retire. And if that's important to you, again, I'm not here to tell another grown man what's important, what's not important. But, these guys have to have sort of an inner talk with themselves. Those are just my thoughts on it, though.
Okay. Who do you think is the top dog out of all three of them now, if that trio is still active and they all come back?
I can't really say. I think Wilder's the least dog out of all of them based on the last performance. But again, we don't know how much Fury has faded yet, because Fury, we can only judge off the Usyk fight. And Usyk won the fight, but he was still competitive with the best heavyweight in the world. But now it's a long layoff, and now you're older, so you expect Fury also to come down on some levels. But we haven't seen that yet, so I can't really see, you know. I thought Joshua heard Dubois before he got knocked out. Right at the moment he got knocked out, I thought he had his best moment in the fight, where he rocked Dubois with a good shot, and Dubois backed up. And then AJ got himself knocked out going forward. But, you know, that's going to leave something in AJ's head saying, "Oh man, I was right there. If I would have landed first, you know, after I'd hurt him, maybe he'd have not been knocked out, and I'd be heavyweight champion right now." Your fortunes change that fast, you know. And it's hard to grasp for a fighter, man. It's hard to accept for a fighter when it's like that, you know. So I don't know who the best of them is, because again, we haven't seen enough of them recently. But I think for what I saw from Wilder, it'd be hard for AJ and Fury to look that bad.
Okay. And in a few days we've got Edgar Berlanga taking on Hamza Sheeraz. A lot of build up. I know you've seen the face off. I just want to ask your opinion on the two fighters. You know, we've seen a lot of aggression from Edgar in the face off, and Hamza obviously tried to kind of how shall I word it? He's not kind of engaged back with him in the same sort of ways. What do you make of that fight?
I think it's a fight I'm excited about. Also, two different kind of personalities, but two good fighters. Edgar has that New York flair, right? So he's sort of going to get in your face. He's going to test you. He's going to, try to punk you and see how you react and whatnot. I thought Hamza handled it very well. I thought he was very mature about everything. But I think also Edgar's trying to get in his head. You know, Edgar's feeling confident right now. You know, he was coming off the Canelo fight, and then he got a first-round knockout in the fight right after that. So he's feeling confident. He feels like he belongs, and he feels like he's the next generation in the super middleweight division. Of course, Hamza feels the same way, you know. I think Hamza was very, very impressive on his way up, as was Edgar Berlanga. Then Edgar kind of took some steps backwards, and then he got the Canelo fight. And he went the distance, and he got some praise in it. Got a first-round knockout, so he's got momentum now coming off the first-round knockout. With Hamza, I thought he had a lot of good momentum in his career. And then the Adames fight sort of left something to be desired. But when I look at it now in hindsight, you start to think, with Hamza fighting at 168, and he's a big guy, he's a tall guy, you know, it could have been that the struggles to make the middleweight limited his ability to sort of fight in that Adames fight. And mind you, Adames is, for me, the best of the middleweight champions right now, you know? So you know, he was facing a tough champion, and maybe struggles to make weight. Maybe 168 will benefit him more. Maybe we can see some of the explosiveness we've seen from him before. And maybe with Berlanga gaining confidence, we can also see some of that explosiveness as well. So I like the way the matchup is coming together, and I like the little bit of bad blood. I know Sheeraz wasn't looking to engage in that bad blood. I think he was trying to take the higher road and try to come off more mature, and I thought he looked more classy in there. But like I said, Edgar's also a New Yorker, so you're going to have that New York flair. You're going to, you know, New Yorkers know how to test you in that way, and try to get to your try to get that mental edge in that way. So I think both guys, you know, can take some positive out of that face-to-face going into the fight, and it's a good fight. It's one I'm looking forward to.
If you was edging towards anyone, any particular outcome?
Man, I tell you what, I probably edge a little bit Sheeraz, but you know, and then you look at that was that Torres who dropped him. You know, you look at that, how easily he went down to the Torres fight. It was a flash knockdown, and you start to think to yourself, man, if Berlanga lands like that, could the fight be over? You know, because Berlanga probably hits a little harder, right? So you know, I think there could be contact. I could see both guys being down in this fight. I could see this fight really being good enough. I'll tell you what, I could go out on a limb and say this fight could be good enough where we could see them run it back again, no matter who wins, right? And go, you know, there could be a part two.
Good stuff. And then a quick one on the rehydration issue with the Conor Bennett and Eubank Jr. It's been a big talking point. I've seen some people online saying that, you know, Matchroom putting Conor's health at risk by putting him up against a bigger guy again. And then there's other people saying, you know, Eubank's at risk because he's having to rehydrate again. But their side hasn't officially confirmed whether that will be happening or not. But what do you kind of make of it? Do you think there should be a rehydration clause? And are they putting Conor at risk? Bearing in mind they're both going to be earning close to probably 10 million, if not more.
I think whichever way you go, there's going to be risks here. You know, I think the BFC puts guys at risk every fight card by not allowing saunas, because if a fighter has to make weight and he can't go in the sauna, that means he's got to burn out his legs completely, going out for a run or jumping rope for a long time, and that is going to burn him out completely. You know, so I think first and foremost the BBFC hurts these guys more, because you can use the sauna and sort of conserve yourself, preserve your physical energy. You don't have a lot of it, instead of having to run 5 miles or 4 miles or whatever and then still be drained. And now you're more drained because you just killed your legs, and you will never recover them by the next day in that case, because you just did that kind of running while you were weight drained already. Instead, being able to go in the sauna will at least let you lose it without having to do a lot of movement, and then you can hydrate back after the win. Either way, you're going to make weight. You're just going to burn a lot more energy. You're going to kill yourself a lot more by not being able to use the sauna. So first and foremost, I know these BFC experts and all these medical experts are going to say this and that. Listen, making weight is one thing that every individual makes it differently. So every individual human being that makes weight, what works for me may not work for somebody else. What works for somebody else may not work for me, and so on and so forth. We are all individual people with individual bodies. So you cannot have a one-size-fits-all what's allowed and disallowed as far as making rules of making weight. You cannot do that. You cannot do that to people, because then you're giving advantages to some people and disadvantages to somebody else. Okay, that's first and foremost. Second of all, when it comes to the rehydration clause with Eubank and Ben, I know they signed a 2-fight deal where the deal was always 160 even for a rematch, but I feel like the issue with Eubank really struggling to make 160, and again, not having the sauna option, you're going to put this guy at risk. I think you're going to put this guy at risk, because again, every time you make that weight, you're taking a piece of yourself out more and more. And I feel like him winning the first fight should give him the benefit of the doubt to at least make it 162 pounds or something like that. Dude, I'm telling you, 162, he's still going to struggle. I'm telling you, when you struggle that much to make weight, an extra 2 pounds helps you a little bit, but you are still massively struggling. So it's not going to be that easy. And for Conor, I mean, listen, Conor, they fought a good fight, and what's the difference for Conor if he fights at 160 and 162 at this point? He's probably not going to win the fight anyway, right? So he can still go back to 147 and say, hey, listen, I gave it a shot at 160. That's not my weight class, and it still be marketable. So I think my opinion, and my opinion doesn't really mean a lot, right? But my opinion, for the sake of safety, I think they should do it about 162 and 62 and a half, I think it makes the fight overall more safe for both guys, because I think it doesn't destroy Eubank, and at the same time, Conor won't get hurt by a heavier Eubank, because it's still a weight drain Eubank. So, but I do think Eubank's a better fighter regardless.
Let's see what happens there. And the last thing I want to speak to you about, Pauli, I think since the last time we spoke on camera, the boxing world's completely changed, mainly down to the impact of Turki Al-Sheikh and the impact of Riyadh season, and we've seen global events, big fights. Just want to get your opinion on the work he's done within boxing by making these fights that previously we would never seen get made, and making the promoters work together. That's especially on the UK side of things. Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren for years were loggerheads. They never even had a meeting prior to that, but now they sit down, have coffee together, have Sunday lunch together. So what do you make of the impact he's had?
Well, I'll tell you what, boxing-wise, the impact has been positive, and it's been tremendous in that way, right? Boxing-wise, I think it's been a very positive impact, because, and also, I'll say this, whether you think Turki Al-Sheikh is a positive influence or a negative influence on boxing, the point is things like this can enter into boxing because promoters were not working together. They were not making the fights. So you got to, first and foremost, either way, with the promoters, the way they were not working before, these fights were not going to happen, and boxing was going to keep suffering for it. So a guy like Turki Al-Sheikh can at least get the credit for making these fights and bringing the promoters together and making the fighters fight each other. We've had some of the better fights that we've seen that we would not have seen in the past couple of years, especially. Think about some of the fights that's been made on the Riyadh season that you definitely would not have seen. And I'm talking about not just main events. I'm talking about whole cards that were good. You know what I mean? So you got to at least give credit where credit is due in that way. From a boxing perspective, I think compared to where we were going, it's been good. And also compared to the guys that aren't involved with him, it's been good. And also I like the fact that he's talking about this no Mickey Mouse, no Tom and Jerry fights. I think as long as he understands what the difference is between a runner and a boxer, and based on the positive way he's been talking about Shakur Stevenson, I think he does understand, because everybody says, oh, no, he's not going to like Shakur. Well, he's talking very positive about Shakur. That means he understands the difference between a runner and a boxer. What Shakur does is boxing. He doesn't run all over the ring. What Devin Haney did against J.C. Ramirez is running, and I think that's what turned him off between that weekend where you had Haney doing that, and then William Skull did it against Canelo. So I kind of like that he put the onus on these guys, because he's not telling you boxing is bad. He's telling you running is bad. You can box and use your legs as long as you're engaging. And so, and like I said, the fact that he talked positively about Shakur Stevenson tells you that he's not against boxers. So boxers shouldn't be alarmed and say, oh, he's going to make everybody fight toe-to-toe. No, you're reading too much into it at that point, because you should read more into it by the fact that he's talking positive about Shakur Stevenson and saying he has things in mind for his future. And Shakur Stevenson, I think, has deserved this, because I think everybody's been avoiding him like the plague. I think he's the best fighter at around 135, 140. So I think overall, when we look at it from a boxing perspective, I think it's been more positive than negative. Yeah, sometimes there's things, you want to say, okay, this, but this, that, but there's this and there's that. But when we look at it from a boxing perspective, when I step back and say, listen, I mean, the entrance of Jake Paul, the entrance of, and those sideshow fights, the fact that Gervonta Davis can pick and choose opponents that are 15, 21 underdogs constantly, under 20 to 15 to 20 to 1 underdogs constantly, and charging pay-per-view dollars for it, and not feeling any pressure whatsoever to fight a competitive fight in a division that's stacked and loaded with ultra talent that threatens his run as a champion. I mean, how could a guy like this not have found an opening in the door and say, no, I'm going to make these fights. This is like, with the money I got, that's too easy. I'm going to make these fights and show the people the way it's done. So yeah, he's paying fighters too. That also helps. Sometimes you think, oh, is he overpaying? I'll tell you what, the Times Square card sometimes makes me think, maybe he's being a little bit too generous. So I say, because these guys showed up, they didn't even fight. They showed up like they just wanted to put the money in their pocket. I thought Teofimo fought well that night, but I thought Ryan just packed it in and ended up accepting to be upset. He was too willing to be upset that night. He wouldn't fight hungry at all, and Rolly took advantage of it. And Haney just basically played a game of tag all night, And yeah, it's PTSD from the Garcia fight. I'll give him a pass on it, but then you shouldn't be making that kind of money either. You should. So I like that from now on he sort of started to sort of set a precedent, because that precedent, I think, shouldn't be looked at too deeply when you compare it to the way he's been speaking about Shakur Stevenson. I think it can be a positive thing going forward. I think overall it's been positive regardless of whatever you think of him. I'm talking about strictly from a boxing perspective. I think he's done a lot of positive things now. And I think going forward, we have Norman and Haney in November to look forward to. That's a good fight. Next week in New York, we have the card we were just talking about, Berlanga, Sheeraz, and also there's Shakur and Zepeda on that card. And, there will be other things scheduled later in the year, So I think if you look at some of your favorite cards that you've watched, they were likely Riyadh season in the last couple of years. So what am I going to say? I got to say, it's from a boxing perspective, it's been positive, guys.
100%, yeah. I think we'd be screwed with that. I think that's probably anyone in the industry, from the people that create content to the commentators to presenters to people that work on events. I just sometimes think what would happen if he wasn't involved.
And it's cards that I noticed, especially when he was first putting out these cards, I couldn't believe some of these cards. And you guys too. I mean, I saw some of these early Riyadh season cards and I was like, there's like 5 main events in one. There's like 5 fights deep, and all those fights could be main events. How many cards have you watched that the main event wasn't as good as the 5th fight down on a card like that? Some of those cards were really, really good. And like I said, these matchups are being made. So we'll see. We'll see how it keeps going forward. I think if he's going to have control of boxing the way he's getting control of boxing, I hope the precedent remains. My only thing is I don't want him to have any favorites as far as, I like this guy more than this guy. I would just like somebody to make the fights between the best fighters, and even if you don't like them all personally, I'd say if they're among the best fighters, I'd say you should make these fights, because, this is the best. You have to think of the sport first before anybody else, and before anything else. And I think he has the power to put the sport at a really high level if he thinks personal feelings aside and just says, you know what, I want to make this fight in this fight. I don't care if I like this guy or maybe I don't like this guy. Even if he does like certain guys, obviously we're all human beings. We're going to have some biases. But regardless of what it is, I want to make the fight. Sometimes you may use guys you don't like. You may not like the guy personally, but you know what, if he can fight, then the matchup is a matchup people may want to see, And I think from that perspective, I think the brand can grow even stronger.
Good stuff. Pauli, appreciate that. All the best in your training camp, and hopefully we'll be there to watch you return to the ring and see if you can roll back the years, as they say, the UK.
Yeah, man. I hope I can, show that what I got. I've been feeling good in camp. I've been feeling good in training. I'm going to step my camp up now once I get back to the States to the more boxing. I've been doing a lot of the conditioning and strength part of it to get my body acclimated to a training camp. And I look forward to, to taking on Tyler Goodjohn on September 6th. And I look forward to the UK crowd, man. The UK crowd was one of my favorite memories of boxing, of pro boxing, and in my career. The UK crowd is the most vivacious of all. Be it, I notice it when I commentate here. I notice it when I fight here. So to be able to come back in front of the UK fans, for me, is a really important thing and a really big deal to me, because I ended my boxing career here in the UK. So I hope that I can have some success here in the UK as well with BKB, and it would be something tremendous and sort of another feather in my hat if I could, ultimately on this last quest come back and win a championship in BKB. And also I'll tell people, check me out on ProBox TV. We have some pretty good fight cards, and we do some a lot of talk shows. But mainly our fight cards are pretty good too. We have Lester Martinez fighting next week. I think he's a very good super middleweight, and I think Lester Martinez could be one guy who, I think Riyadh season will be interested in matching against those guys like Berlanga and Sheeraz and all those other guys. Lester is a very good 168 pounder as well. So that's like I said, just make the fights, I'd say, and I think Riyadh season will continue to grow if it puts personal feelings aside and just makes the fights between the best fighters, regardless of what Turki Al-Sheikh feels about them personally. I think the fights make themselves and they become entertaining. I think Martinez is a really good fighter, and he's an exciting fighter, and I think he's going to be entertaining for years to come. And lastly, watch me on Pauli TV, guys. It's my YouTube channel.
Pauli, pleasure as always. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
The most powerful trait we have. You need power, speed. Let your imagination do the rest.
Undisputed, the Mexican Monster Pack out now.